And this is a special meeting. I'm calling a special meeting to order at about 8:40 this morning. I'd also like to say that Alex Trillofino is excused from the meeting this morning. And we're going to begin the meeting first with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll stand up, please. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Okay, and also, Alex Trillofino is excused, plus he has reclused himself to avoid any conflict of interest. And so I'd also like to make everyone aware that a proper notice has been given as required by Ohio Revised Code 121.22. The format for today is basically one, and that's a hearing of a registered voter challenge. So I'm going to turn the meeting now over to Ms. Poland to give us some history on this particular challenge, voter challenge.
Yes, Administrator Chuck Eckert will present that to the board.
Chuck?
Good morning.
Need you, you're going to be giving testimony. Need you to be sworn in. And
I do.
thank you.
You're welcome. Again, good morning. You have been provided with a spreadsheet, Challenge Voters, June 9th, 2021, filed by Derek Blassingame. The challenge was filed by Mr. Blassingame on June 9th of 21. I do want to point out that on form number 257, which you have been provided with in your packets, the challenge of right to vote and correction of registration list, the address for Mr. Mcewen is listed as 7832 Ridgepoint Drive. However, Mr. Mcewen is not registered at that address. He is registered at 7382 Ridgepoint Drive. He has never been registered at 7832. He has been registered at 7382 since 2005. So letters were sent to Mr. Mcewen at the three addresses provided, and to date, I have received no response from him, and no mail has been returned as undelivered.
So the responses were mailed to the 7382?
They were mailed to 7382. They were mailed to 7832, both Ridgepoint Drive addresses, and they were mailed to 10935 Ricefield Place, Fairfax Station, Virginia as well. So they were mailed to three addresses.
Okay, and thus far, no response.
Madam Chair, I believe that Kurt Hartman is here on behalf of Mr. Mcewen.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, and we will listen to Mr. Hartman when, have you completed yours?
Yes, ma'am, unless you have any questions for me at this point?
I have none.
Okay.
I just also wanted to point out to the board that the challenge form number 257, was filed in person by Mr. Blassingame on June 9th. The supporting documentation, which is in your packet, was emailed to the board. So I just wanted to make that clarification. The supporting documentation was emailed. The challenge form was filed in person.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Blassingame is present.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
excuse me. If we could get from Mr. Stevenson just a description of what the burden is, whose burden it is, and what we should expect today before we bring Mr. Hartman or Mr. Blassingame up. That'd be great. Thank you.
The burden is on the challenger to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that the registered voter does not reside at that address and is improperly registered. That's the nuts and bolts of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Blassingame? Mr. Blassingame, are you going to be presenting evidence, testifying?
Yeah, I've already given the board the
evidence that I will be discussing with the board today. I've already given that to you all when I filed this on June the 7th initially.
So you're gonna be-
on May the 27th.
Mr.
So
Blasingame.
you're going to be testifying
I'm going to be presenting the evidence
or
or the
presenting?
exhibits.
So you need to be sworn in.
Okay, well,
Okay, sir. Again, could you?
sure. Yes. Okay,
You may continue.
Is there anything else we need to do procedural?
At this particular point, we have completed the proper procedural.
So actually, this was filed, you all denied it on May the 7th because neither one of us was present. This was filed initially on May the 27th with the exhibits that were attached to it in person. I did call to refile it, and I was advised that I did not need to bring the additional exhibits. I just needed to get the challenge form completed, and in that capacity, that's what I did. So that's why they were emailed, because you all had already received the original copies on May 27th. So in reference to that, Bob Mcewen's voter registration, even though he has a Cincinnati address, that address is also represented, also registered under the Hamilton County Auditor's website as Mr. Hartman's address as well. The Exhibit 1 in the packet that was presented to you all on May 27th and again on June 9th, on Exhibit 1 it is a Hamilton County Auditor summary of Mr. Mcewen's Anderson Township residence. Is listed as a Fairfax Station, Virginia address. The property is 1,500 square feet and valued at $106,000 in Fairfax, Virginia. And that's Exhibit number 1. If we go to Exhibit number 2, there's a deed for Mr. Mcewen's Anderson residence. Is listed his address as Fairfax Station, Virginia once again. This document was executed in Virginia, and it was prepared by Mr. Mcewen, who listed his address at Fairfax Station, Virginia. Exhibit number 3, which is included in the packet that I presented to the board, also has a property record for Mr. Mcewen's Fairfax address in Fairfax, Virginia. The property is 4,500 square feet and valued at $977,000. Exhibit number 4, which the board has record of in your possession, Mr. Mcewen's foreign lobbyist registration, where he listed his Fairfax Station address as his home and also on his DC business. Exhibit number 5, also which is in the board's possession, shows Mr. Mcewen's website that lists his address as Fairfax Station, Virginia. Exhibit number 6 is the Internal Revenue Service Form 990, is listed for Mr. Mcewen's Center for National Policy, which is his organization that is registered under a DC address, but also lists and states on the website that Mr. Mcewen works 40 hours at that address and for that organization. An address 35 minutes from his Fairfax Station address, but it also indicates that it's almost 8 hours from his Anderson address. So there are some questions as it relates to his where he resides at. The annual reports of the Mcewen Enterprises for 2016 through 2021, which is also Exhibit 7 in the board's possession. The office address is Mcewen's residence in Virginia. Mr. Mcewen and Mr. and Mrs. Mcewen are listed as officers and directors respectively, and both list their address as Mcewen's address in Virginia. The corporation was formed at the same address in 1995. So there are some questions, some legitimate questions in all of these exhibits as it relates to Mr. Mcewen's residency in the state of Ohio. He's a former congressman. He has a lot of political ties here in Hamilton County in the state of Ohio, but yet he lives and lists all of his residents in the state of Virginia. Everything on his legal documents lists the state of Virginia. Everything is Fairfax, Virginia, or Washington, D.C. On none of the records here, he never lists the city of Cincinnati or Hamilton County or Ohio resident as his legitimate and legal residence for any of his legal correspondence. So the question that I ask today is Bob Mcewen a Ohio resident, and does he meet the Ohio residency requirements to vote in the state of Ohio? And based on the overwhelming evidence that I presented to this board through Exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, Bob Mcewen is not a resident of the state of Ohio, and he should be removed off the voter rolls immediately.
Thank you.
I also do have a question as it relates to the comments that was made previously during the June 7th board meeting, where the issue was raised regarding Alex Trantifilo, or whatever his last name is, making a statement that I am suing him and he's listed, and somehow my lawsuit in Hamilton County is relative to my challenge of Bob Mcunion. I want the board to know for clarification, the lawsuit that I filed is in reference to Charlie Winburn's appointment to the Hamilton County Treasurer's Office. Has nothing to do with this voter challenge. So they're two separate entities. So I want to clear that up because it was stated on the record last time. So it has nothing to do with that. And then Mr. Trantiff, he recused himself and abstained, and then he voted on it anyway and then pretended like he didn't vote on it. So that's a technical issue that the board needs to address as well. Finally, I also want to, before you all vote on this, I would ask that Mallory clarify, because last year we had a dispute where he called me a slave, and he indicated that his duty and job as his official capacity as the NAACP, at the time vice president and president now, was to get rid of slaves like me. I have a recording of that as well. So if that's still his animus toward me, I would ask that Mr. Mallory recuses himself or abstain from voting today.
Madam Chair, what does that have, what does that have to do with this voter challenge at all?
It seems irrelevant.
That's kind of
Does
what-
not
Exactly.
at all
So I just want to
relate.
make sure that there's no animus, because if his viewpoint of me as being a slave, as indicated in the record that I have here, and will be more than willing to share with the public, I want to make sure that that's not the case. Is that the case, Mallory?
No,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
think so.
I'm sorry, sir, that it's not, and it's
All right.
irrelevant to
Thank
this
you.
case.
It is. Thank you. Just like his comments, the comments related to Alex last week, and you should have called him out for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything else, sir?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify?
Oh, one more thing for the record. The address that's listed here that they indicated at 7382 Ridge Point Drive, his name is registered as an owner of that address as well. Look it up. Oh, Hamilton County Auditor's Office. 7382 Ridge Point Drive is registered under this man, Kurt Hartman's address as well. Can't have two owners unless you're married. I don't know if you do with that kind of hanky-panky.
Thank you. Mr. Hartman.
I've been watching off.
Madam Chairman, because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, I believe we are entitled to cross-examination of the testimony of the
That's correct.
That's correct. So
And-
are you going to be, excuse me just a moment, please, Mr. Blassingame, you had an opportunity to speak, and we will follow the appropriate procedures. Mr. Hartman, are you going to testify, or are you going to present evidence?
I think at this stage, I'd like to just proceed cross-examination of Mr. Blake.
So,
Attorney for Mr.
so you're going to testify,
No, he's the attorney for Mr. Mcewen, and he's going to be asking questions. of Mr.
asking questions
Blasky.
only? Okay,
At this stage,
thank you.
Madam Chair, I would ask that Mr. Hartman use the microphone to ask the questions.
Yes.
And I'll yield my chair for him.
Mr. Blasingham, do you have the exhibits that you just presented?
I do.
Okay. If you can, look at exhibit number 5.
He has not been sworn in as a matter of procedure. You still got to swear he's not above the law.
No, he is following the law. He basically is asking for information. He's not testifying.
Do you have exhibit number 5 in front of you?
Yes,
Where did you obtain that exhibit?
from public records.
A public records. From what public office did you obtain that public record?
This is public record, this is public information, and I obtained it through public records.
From where?
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
Madam Chairman, I would ask that the witness be directed to answer the question.
Would you mind please answering the question?
I got this document from public records.
Did somebody provide that record to you?
No one ever provided it to me. I researched it. It was available through the public internet.
Okay, what website did you obtain it from?
I don't recall. I think it was a Google search.
So it was on Google search? You obtained it, you indicate you obtained it from a website.
Yes, through a Google
What-
search.
what
I clicked
website?
on the I clicked on the link, opened it up, printed it out.
So did you Google it?
I just Googled. I just put in some words, and it came back that, and I printed it out. I didn't have a record of the website. I just printed out what I had, and I put it as Exhibit 5.
What search did you conduct?
I did a Google search.
Of what search terms?
I don't recall.
When did you do the search?
I don't recall.
Did you do it within the past month?
I don't recall.
Did you do it within the past year?
I don't recall.
Do it within the past 5 years?
I don't recall.
So this document could be 5 years old, correct?
I don't recall.
I didn't ask what you recall. I'm asking, could this document be 5 years old?
I don't know if it's neither correct or incorrect, sir.
Okay, so you have no basis for the accuracy of document number 5. Let's go to
There is
document
basis
number
for
6.
there is basis for it.
Let's go to document number
There's
6.
basis for it because it legitimately is a public record, and it is indicating is supportive of his address is registered in Fairfax, Virginia, not in the state of Ohio. So it's a legitimate document.
But you acknowledge the document can be over 5 years old, correct?
I said that I do not know if that. You asked me if it was incorrect or correct. I said I cannot confirm if it's incorrect or correct. That I searched that within the last 5
Playing
years.
the game, the question is, could the document be 5 years old?
I cannot confirm or deny if it's more than 5 years old or less than 5 years old.
So the document could be 10 years old,
Asked and
correct?
answered. Objection. Asked and answered.
So the document could be 10 years old, correct?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Madam Chairman, I would ask the witness be directed to answer that question,
Asked and
please.
answered.
Would
He's
you
asked it
please-
in multiple ways. I've already answered it multiple ways.
You don't know how old the
I said, ma'am,
document
could you
is.
please-
Asked and answered.
Would you please answer his
Objection. Asked
question?
and answered.
We'll move on. Document number 6. Where did you obtain that document?
Public records.
From what public entity did you obtain that record?
Google search.
Okay. What terms did you use for Google search?
I don't recollect.
When did you conduct that Google search?
I don't recollect.
Did anybody provide you that document?
I don't recollect. I did a Google search and I pulled up the document and printed it out.
Mr. Blazingame, did anybody provide you
I
that
don't
document?
recall if anybody sent me or provided me with this particular document. I recall printing it off online from a public website.
Well, if you printed it off from a website, nobody would have provided it to you. Is that correct?
I said I do not recall if anyone provided it to me, but I printed. You asked the question, I answered it. I do not recall if anybody gave me or provided me this document. I went to a public internet search service, and printed it out, and that's how I got the record.
When did you print this out?
I don't recall the date or the time.
Could the document be 10 years old?
Asked and answered.
Now, we haven't talked about this document, how old this document is.
Asked and answered. You just asked me could it have been printed out in the last 10 years. I asked and answered.
What was your answer? I'm sorry. I
My
didn't hear
answer
you.
was that I cannot recollect if it's been printed out in the last 10 years. This document is from 2018, so it's the most accurate and most up-to-date document. There has been several interest in Bob Mcewen's Ohio registration. I'm not the first person who has brought it up or who has researched or I'm the first person to step in this room and to challenge it legally, but I'm not the only person out in this community who is concerned about this person and his eligibility to vote in the state of Ohio.
Who else has expressed an interest or concern about Mr. Mcewen's residency?
Derek D. Blassingame.
Who else?
I don't recollect.
You just testified under oath. You know you are under oath here today.
I don't recollect.
Do you understand that you are under oath?
Based on my Google searches, there has been other interest in this situation. There's things on Facebook, but I'm not aware.
Mr. Blazingame, the question is, are you aware you are under oath today?
I'm very aware.
And if you provide any false testimony, you are subject to perjury prosecutions. You understand that?
I am not aware of anyone participating in my voter challenge today besides the information that I obtained through public record search online.
Mr. Blazingame, the question is, you understand that if you commit perjury and provide perjured testimony...
I have not committed perjury. I've answered all of your questions.
That is fine. I want you to answer them, and I want you to answer them fully and truthfully.
I've already answered. What's your
But you
next
do
question?
understand that if you commit perjury here today,
I have not
you are
committed
subject
perjury.
to prosecution.
I haven't committed perjury.
But you understand that is
I haven't
the
committed perjury.
possibility if you commit perjury.
I have not committed perjury.
You don't know where you got...
I am not aware that I have
Exhibit
committed
6.
perjury.
Did you have any conversations with Chris Hicks prior to filing this complaint or the prior complaint against Mr. Mcewen?
Chris Hicks is a government watchdog in Claremont County. I'm a government watchdog in Hamilton County. We conferred about the challenge, but we had a conversation. Yeah, we did.
When did you have that conversation with Mr. Hicks?
We've had several conversations. Last year, November, I think, November, December, maybe once this year. We had a conversation about other political matters, but never anything in depth in particular.
Did Mr. Hicks provide you any of the documents that are attached to your complaint as exhibits?
Mr. Hicks did send me some information, but I have not read it yet.
So he did not send you any of the documents that are attached to the complaint as exhibits? That's your sworn testimony.
Any of the documents that Mr. Hicks did send me some documents. I have not had a chance to review those documents at this time.
So the question is, Mr. Hicks did not send you any of the documents attached.
If Mr. Hicks sent me any documents, I'm not aware of it, and I'm not able to verify it because the information that I obtained was information that I conferred with people who have already been involved in this based on what I've seen on Facebook and based on the information they said they obtained, and I just looked for the same stuff. But I have not had any documents he sent to me. I have not had a chance to review them yet.
So he did not provide those documents?
I have not had a chance to review the documents that he sent me.
All the documents attached to the complaint, your testimony is you got off the internet?
I did a Google search, a public record search on the internet, and I obtained those documents.
You can go to Exhibit 3, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hartman, which exhibit?
3.
3.
Where did you obtain that document?
That's a document from Fairfax County Property Records.
Did you personally go to the Fairfax County Property Records website?
I don't recall. A lot of this stuff took hours and in the wee hours of searching. I don't recall exactly where I searched it or how I obtained it, but I do know it's from Fairfax County Property Search.
And I notice that if you look at the bottom right of that document, it indicates page 1 of 4. Do you see that?
Yes,
And the next,
I do see page 104.
And then the next
1/4.
page, if I'm looking at it correctly, is page 3 of 4?
I see 2 of 4.
Okay, my copy does not have 2 of 4.
I have 1 of 4 and I have 2 of 4.
How about 3 of 4?
Mr. Hartman, we've got all 4 pages here.
Okay, the copy I got
Yeah,
from
we
the
got all
board
4 pages, so
must
what
have
else
been-
do we
Need
need?
it? Do you need it to?
I'll be fine. Thank you, though. Copy I got only had every other page, apparently. You know where Mr. Mcewen his driver's license is issued from?
No, I'm not in his wallet.
Did you conduct a search on the internet to try to find where he is licensed as a driver?
I'm not in his wallet.
So you did not conduct a search on the
I don't have
internet to try
I don't have
to?
a copy of his driver's license, and nor is that essentially public record besides a general driver's abstract. But there was no need for me to do that because all of the documents I've submitted here supports that he lives in the state of Virginia.
Did you ascertain or attempt to ascertain?
No, I did
any-
not. Ask and answer.
You need to let me finish asking the question first, Mr. Blazingham. Did you try to ascertain where his motor vehicles are registered?
Ask and answer.
Did you try to ascertain where his motor vehicle is registered?
Ask and answered.
That is a no.
Ask and answered.
Madam Chairman, I would ask you to direct the witness to answer if he had tried to ascertain where his motor vehicles are registered.
To the best of your ability, could you please try to answer the question?
I already answered the question. He asked me did I obtain any information related to his driver's license or driving record. I've already answered that. I already answered the question.
There's
Yes-
driver's
Yes
license.
or no?
How about his motor vehicles? There's a difference between driver's license and motor vehicles. You have your driver's license on you, correct?
I am not aware of any search that I have. I am not aware of any search that I have completed that has included his motor vehicle. If I did, it was through a quick skim and a quick attachment, but I don't have any record of it. I can't recollect if I did or not.
So do you say yes or no, sir?
No, not that I'm aware of. Not
No
that I
to-
can recollect. it's been coming together for months now, so not that I can recollect at this time.
So the answer is no to the question.
Not that I can recollect at this time.
Yes or no?
Not that I can recollect at this time.
I'm fine. Did you try to ascertain whether Mr. McEwen pays Ohio income tax?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did you do anything to ascertain real property that Mr. McEwen owns in Naples, Florida?
I did an Ohio search, and I looked at Fairfax, Virginia for what I'm aware of is what's available to me. And I'm not a resident of Virginia, so I can't go to every detail. But I did not do any searches in Florida, from my understanding.
Okay. Why'd you choose Fairfax, Virginia to do a search?
Again, that address is listed on all of his legal documents, correspondence, business registrations, on the websites. It's a consistent address that's listed throughout his registrations.
And also the Ohio address is listed on matters too, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
County auditor's website?
County auditor's website shows a Fairfax, Virginia mailing address on his property registrations.
The deed that's registered for 7382 Ridge Point?
I have no information related to 73. Yeah, that's registered. The mailing and the principal address is listed as Fairfax, Virginia.
And you're trying to, if I understood you correctly, you testified here under oath that I also live at 7382 Ridge Point?
Based on a previous search, it could have been wrong, but you know what? I do take that back. I take that back. I was wrong about that.
You were wrong
I
about
was wrong about that being his address.
Mr.
That was
Hartman's
incorrect.
address.
That was something that I had flipped through and made a mistake. So that was my error. Come back.
So for a point of
For
clarification,
point of clarification, now that my memory is flowing in that direction, since he asked the question directly, that is not his address. That's registered under Mr. Mcewen.
okay, thank you.
Under what? I didn't hear the last.
That's registered under Mr. Mcunion, Mr. Mcewen, from my understanding. No, actually, let me. I've got a lot going on here.
Take your time, I want to make sure we get it right.
Oh, we don't get it right. Yeah, that address at 73, that address listed at 7382 Rich Point Drive, according to the Hamilton County Auditor, it has a mailing address related to Fairfax, Virginia.
I'm talking about my address.
We're not here to talk about you.
You, Ms. Blasingame, you brought up in testimony.
He's
direct
testifying.
Testimony,
He's testifying.
Mr.
Just a point of clarification. You've already,
He's testifying. He's not allowed to testify. He's only here to represent the facts on behalf of his client.
Blasingame?
He's testifying. The address listed at 7382 Ridge Point Drive, according to the Hamilton County Auditor, is listed with Bob and Elizabeth Mcewen at 10935 Ricefield Place, Fairfield Station, Virginia.
And there are about 11 other people who have the address of 7382 Ridge Point Drive, too.
I have
Is
no
that
interest in
correct?
those additional individuals.
But the county auditor's website indicates 11 other people.
I didn't do that. I did a search specifically for Bob Mcewen.
Okay. Now, Exhibit 1, I don't want to belabor this, Madam Chairman, but I just want to make sure it's on the record. Exhibit 1, where did you obtain that?
Exhibit number 1 is a property report from the Dusty Rhodes, Hamilton County Auditor.
Okay. And what property does that concern? Because it doesn't have a property address. It's got an address on there. Yes.
It was based on an owner search,
Okay.
based on Bob Mcewen, whatever property.
And when
was
did
registered.
your testimony is you personally obtained this document?
My testimony is that this document was available in the public on the public website of the Hamilton County Auditor.
Did you personally obtain this document from the website?
I'm on the website now. Yes.
I'm not asking that. The document you are presenting
Yes.
here, attached as Exhibit 1,
Yes.
you personally obtained that from the website?
Yes.
When?
Apparently, it was in January, sometime around January.
Why do you say that? You can remember that date, but you can't remember the date you got Exhibit 5. You can't remember the date you got Exhibit 6. Suddenly now, though, bam, I remember I got this one in
It's
January.
available right here on Exhibit 1. You asked me to look at Exhibit 1, and it says January the 30th. That's why I have my memory is able to be keen on that. because
Okay.
You asked me to look at Exhibit 1, and it stated right there.
Let's go to Exhibit 2.
Sure.
From where did you obtain that document?
This document, exhibit number 2, is from the Hamilton County Recorder.
When did you obtain that?
I don't recollect.
5 years ago?
I don't recollect.
10 years ago?
I don't recollect.
Not sure if I asked it on Exhibit 3. When did you obtain that document?
Exhibit 3 appears to have been obtained on January 30th, 2021.
Is that when you obtained it?
I don't recollect, but yeah, that's the date that's printed on the.
I know that's the date printed on it. When did you obtain it?
January 30th, 2021. I don't recollect for sure, but that's the date that's listed here, and printers usually don't make mistakes usually.
And Exhibit 4, from where did you obtain that?
Number 4.
Yes.
I don't recollect.
When did you obtain that?
I don't recollect when I retained this document.
Okay. We've already addressed 5 and 6. Exhibit 7. Where did you obtain that document?
I don't recollect. That appears to be a possible search that I did, but I don't recollect where I got the document.
When did you obtain the document?
I don't recollect.
Document 7, same question. Where did you get that document?
Exhibit number 7?
Yes.
Asked and answered.
Where did you get that document?
Asked and answered.
Refresh my recollection, I forgot.
Asked and answered.
Plays a game. Where did you get that document?
With all due respect, Madam Chairman, I've already answered that question. Just asked me extensive questions related to Exhibit 7. He's asking me the same questions again. It's had been asked and answered.
Okay, I forgot. Refresh my recollection. You got a better memory.
Asked and
than me.
answered.
Very good. Now, a couple final questions to close up with. Do you have your driver's license on you?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please?
No. You're welcome to subpoena it through the board. The rule requires that any records that you want or any witnesses that you want, that you have to subpoena. And you have not provided it. You have
Okay,
not provided
we'll handle
an
that.
appropriate subpoena.
Now, Mr. Blazingham, we're here talking about voter registration, and you're questioning where Mr. McEwen's residency is, and specifically, the standard actually is whether you've proven by clear and convincing evidence that he does not meet the statutory requirements to vote. And that's from the Hallwedell versus Hamilton County Board of Elections decision from 2015 at the Ohio Supreme Court. What is the address? Do you recognize the address of 215 North Avenue Northeast, apartment 1327, Atlanta, Georgia 30308?
Objection. Objection. What's the relevance to that question? We're not here for a challenge in reference to Blassingame. Mr. Hartman, I would suggest that if you have a question about anything related to 215 North Avenue, that you make the appropriate mention to the board and file the appropriate
Do you
paperwork.
recognize that address?
Objection. Relevance to the matter before us regarding Bob McEwen.
Do you recognize that address?
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
That's probably wise. Mr. Blazingham, you registered to vote in Hamilton County in what year?
Objection. Relevance to the matter before the board today.
Mr. Blazingham, in order to make this challenge, you've got to be a qualified elector in Hamilton County. I'm trying to ascertain, are you even qualified to vote in Hamilton County? When did you register to vote in Hamilton
Objection,
County?
that would be a voter challenge, and the statute does require that he would file a voter challenge form with the board, and the board would hold a hearing within 10 days. Mr. Hartman has not done that. Today, we're here to talk about Mr. Bob Mcewen. If there's a challenge as it relates to my elector status in the state of Ohio, Mr. Hartman has failed to file the appropriate paperwork with the Board of Elections, according to the statute.
Ms. Blazingame, I don't want to get into back and forth with you on it. You have this requirement to demonstrate what's called standing. That is, you have the qualifications to even bring such a challenge. Mr. Blazingham, is it not true that you are also an active registered voter in Fulton County, Georgia?
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
Mr. Blazingame, isn't it true that you registered to vote in Fulton County, Georgia after you were registered to vote in Hamilton County?
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
Specifically, isn't it true that you were that you registered to vote in Fulton County, Georgia on October 27th, 2017?
I plead the Fifth Amendment.
Isn't it true, Mr. Blazingame, that you registered to vote on October 27th, 2017 in Fulton County, Georgia with the address of 215 North Avenue Northeast, apartment 1327, Atlanta, Georgia 30308?
I recently updated my voter registration with the Board of Elections at 228 Woolper Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45220. That's my most recent address in the state of Ohio.
What's the most recent election that you voted in?
That's on the record with the Board of Elections.
What is the most recent election that you voted in?
I voted in the primary.
Which primary?
I voted in the 2021 primary.
The 2021 primary. Did you also vote in 2021, in January of 2021, in Fulton County, Georgia?
No.
That's your sworn testimony. You did not cast a
I
ballot in
plead the
Georgia
fifth.
in
I
the
plead
in the
fifth.
senatorial runoff.
Relevance to the matter today, because I've already registered. I already updated my registration at 228 Woolper Avenue 45220 last month or earlier this month. So I qualify as an elector based on my voter registration.
Isn't it true that you voted in Fulton County, Georgia in 2018?
I plead the Fifth. I don't recollect.
Or either you plead the Fifth or you don't recollect, which is
I
it?
plead the Fifth.
Isn't it true that you voted in Fulton County, Georgia in 2020?
I don't recollect. I plead the Fifth.
There was a congressional runoff in December of 2020 that you voted in person, December 1st, 2020, Congressional District 5 runoff election in Fulton County, Georgia, that you voted in person in Fulton County, Georgia. Is that not true?
My most recent registration is 228 Woolper Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45220. That's on record with the Board of Elections. I came in person and filed an updated voter registration status.
You didn't re-register. You're saying you just updated an address after you had already voted, registered to vote, and voted out of state at least 3 times, correct?
My most recent address is 228 Woolper Avenue, and it meets the elector requirements based on the statute. You have to be registered, and in order to be registered in Ohio. I meet all the requirements according to the statute for a registered voter in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
I've been a resident of the state of Ohio the majority of my life. I was born and raised here. I'm not an out-of-state person. I'm not a person who's doing business in D.C. I'm not a person who's doing business in Virginia. I'm not a person who does not indicate my Cincinnati address. And my most recent address of registration with the Hamilton County Board of Elections in the state of Ohio is 228 Woolper Avenue.
Okay, so you've been a resident. You've been a
45220.
resident of Ohio your entire life. I'd like to
Majority of my adult life.
I'd like to hand you what I'm marking.
I have been a resident of the majority of my adult life. I have lived in other states, but I have lived in other states, but my most recent is 228 Woolper Avenue.
And what date was that, Mr. Blessingame?
I don't recall the specific date, but I think it was within the last 30 days or so that I updated my voter registration.
Thank you.
Objection. Objection. This document does not meet the discovery because I did not see this document prior to this. This is a surprise, and it's unconstitutional because I have a right to be aware of this information prior to him providing it. I would also object because we're not here about a voter challenge related to Mr. Blassingame. What Mr. Hartman is doing is trying to get the attention off of off of Mr. Bob Mcunion, which is what is statutorily on the agenda today. Again, if Mr. Hartman wants to challenge my voting eligibility in the state of Ohio, he has not filed the appropriate paperwork with the Board of Elections. So I would object to this entire process because we're getting away from what's on the board's agenda. Legitimately, the board can't even hear a challenge to my voting status until after we voted on this matter that's on the agenda today.
And the matter on the agenda is regarding Mr. McEwen's address, his residence.
Exactly, and it has become a matter of him he's usurping the process for filing the appropriate voter challenge. If there's a challenge to Mr. Blassingame to my voting record in Ohio, then Mr. Hartman has failed to file the appropriate paperwork and give the appropriate hearing. This is usurping the statutory requirement that he files that paperwork. We're here for Bob Mcewen. I've already verified and clarified to this board that my most recent voter registration is 228 Woolper Avenue.
And what
Cincinnati,
date was that, sir?
Ms. Poland, do you have a record of my voter registration?
It was very recent, within the past month, but we can get that
Within the past month,
within the past month.
within the past 30 days.
Correct. Would you like that documentation?
Yes.
But Madam Chairman, I would point out, he just testified under oath that he has always been a resident.
I said I've been
of
a resident the majority of my adult life. I have lived in other states.
So I want to just get into that. You know, when you're voting in November of 2020, you voted.
Objection, Ms. Poland, she's the director of the Board of Elections. She's already verified to the board that she is aware of my most recent updated voter registration with the Board of Elections.
Madam
She's already
Chairman, can I
verified that.
not
So
be
any further
interrupted?
questions about that is related to a challenge to my voter status, and he has not done the appropriate paperwork with the board to get that on the agenda. If you want to challenge my voter registration, Mr. Hartman, I would welcome that.
So I want to look at Exhibit A, if you would, please. This is a citation that you were issued by the Norwood City Police on August 22nd, 2020. For let's see what it is.
What exhibit is this?
Speeding, going 84 and
What exhibit is this?
55. Exhibit A, what I just handed to you. And so as of August 20th, it looks, if you go into the first block after it has your name and an address, 1525 Gilpin Avenue, where's 1525 Gilpin Avenue?
Objection, this citation has been vetted, tried, and closed in the Hamilton County Municipal Court. That question is something that you would need to ask the Norwood City Police Department, because I'm not sure where they got that address from.
Okay, so you've never lived at 1525 Gilpin Avenue?
That is a registered, yes, I have lived there. And I did not provide them with that address at the time, at the traffic stop. That's the address that they retrieved from their record system based here in the state of Ohio, which does indicate that I did live at 1525 Gilpin Avenue.
Okay,
That's a
but
Cincinnati address.
So you see that on there. If you go down, there's that big first block. And that's where the officer puts in driver's license information. And it indicates, if you go to that first line on the far right, that you were issued and utilized a Georgia driver's license. Do you see that?
I plead the fifth at this point because, again, this is a voter challenge that he's doing right now, and it's statutorily incorrect to have these conversations about my voter status when I've already verified, with the support of Sherry Poland, the director of the Board of Elections, that I have updated my registration within the last 30 days. Yes, I do have a Georgia driver's license. Yes, I did stay in the state of Georgia, but I have had some challenges personally in the last few years, and I have not updated my driver's license.
Okay, so you still have a Georgia's driver's license. You voted in Georgia in December of 2020. You voted in Georgia.
No, I never said I voted in December. I said I do not recollect if I voted.
You don't remember being in Georgia in Fulton County and voting in a congressional district runoff election?
I cannot recollect when the last time I voted in Fulton County. I cannot recollect at this time. The appropriate thing to do.
Did you vote in the runoff election for Georgia Senate in January of 2021?
That I cannot recollect. My most recent updated registration, voter registration in the United States of America is 228 Woolper Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45220. Ms. Poland has already supported that. The registration has been updated, she believes, within the last 30 days.
We got it.
Yes, the change of address was submitted on May 13th, 2021,
Well, that was just
last month.
last month. Within, thank you.
What was the date again?
May 13th, 2021.
Thank you.
But you were updating your address, you were not registering as an Ohio voter.
You said May 13th, 2021?
Yes.
All right, so that's within the 30-day period. So I would ask that the board respectfully move on from this conversation, because we've already established that I am a qualified elector in the state of Ohio, based on the record that we've received.
Did-
I haven't
did
received
you-
a copy.
did you-
Can I get a copy of that?
Did he register to vote,
He
or did he
changed his
just change his address?
He was already registered to vote in Hamilton County.
Okay.
This was just, it was a registration update, an
And
address update.
And Ms.
Okay,
Poland,
so it
for the
was a
record,
registration update as of May the 13th, which meant that, looks like in August of 2020, his address, he was out of state. Looks like he lived in a different state.
you said, what was the question?
Your residency in 2020, when you received this traffic citation from the Norwood Police Department.
What was the question? Ms. Poland, do you recollect the conversation that we had before I decided to update my voter registration? You told me I could do it online, or I could come in person. I chose to come in person. Do you recollect that conversation?
Excuse me, I believe he is the
Can-
witness right now. Ms.
Sir,
Poland
can
is
you
not
fin-
the witness.
Can you finish letting Mr. Hartman ask you some questions, please?
All three for the board members. I'm going to hand you, Ms. Blazingham, what's been marked as Exhibit B. I got the original over here. The original's over here, just for the court reporter. I would represent to you that this is a voter report obtained through a public records request from the Fulton County, Georgia officials. If you look in the top left, it is dated June 10th of 2021. And at the bottom, it has what is indicated as the election history for Derek Damco Blazingame with an address.
Derek D'Amico Blasting.
D'Amico, I apologize on that.
Don't apologize, just get it right.
Residence at 215 North Avenue Northeast, Apartment 1327, Atlanta, Georgia, 30308. And if you look at the voting history, it's, bottom of the first page runs over to the second page. It indicates that for the November 2018 general election, you voted in Fulton County by absentee. Did you vote in Fulton County, Georgia by absentee vote in November of 2018?
I don't not recollect. I cannot neither verify or deny that this is an accurate voting record of the Fulton County, Georgia Secretary of State.
Okay, but your testimony is you can't recollect whether you voted in that November
I cannot
general
recollect if what my voting record or history is of recent in Fulton County,
Okay.
nor can I substantiate this as a legitimate record from the Georgia Secretary of State voter registration system.
If you look at the next entry, December 1st, 2020, it indicates that you voted in the December 1st, 2020 Congressional District 5 federal special runoff election, and how you voted, it indicates regular, meaning you were present. Again, in Fulton County, Georgia. Did you vote in Fulton County, Georgia on December 1st, 2020?
Again, I cannot recollect my voting history or voting record in Fulton County of recent, nor can I verify that this is an accurate and true record from the Georgia Secretary of State voter registration system, nor can I verify or recollect what the regular status means as it relates to this status that he has indicated as regular, meaning that I voted in person.
Finally, Mr. Blazingame, it indicates on January 5th of this year, 2021, that you voted by absentee ballot in the federal Senate runoff election, which would have been for the 2 U.S. Senate seats in Georgia. Did you vote for in the 2 Senate races either one of the 2 Senate races that was held in Georgia in the election that was held in January of 2021?
I cannot recollect my voting record or history in Fulton County, nor can I confirm or verify if this is a true and accurate record from the Georgia Secretary of State voter registration system. I also was not giving any of the exhibits prior to today's meeting. As a matter of civil procedure in the state of Ohio, discovery, if we want to be technical, he should have given this prior to this. All of these exhibits are surprises, nor have I had a chance to verify any of this with the Fulton County Secretary, the Fulton County Board of Elections, the Georgia Secretary of State, all of this information that he's presenting to the board is a surprise. All of the exhibits that I submitted to the board was well filed in May 27th. You all had a hearing on June 7th, which was denied, and I resubmitted those documents on June 9th. This is all a surprise. I cannot verify this document, nor can I verify or recollect my voting pattern or history in Fulton County.
Have you ever voted in Fulton County, Georgia?
Yes.
When?
I cannot recollect my voting history or my voting pattern in Fulton County, nor can I verify if this is a true and correct document from the Georgia Secretary of State voter registration. And what is this, Exhibit B?
What you're holding up, that is Exhibit B, yes.
Exhibit B, I would like for the record to be documented as Georgia Secretary of State voter registration system, individual voter report. I would also like to indicate that the status here indicating regular is not verified or clarified on this document. So I can't neither verify or give any testimony today as it relates to that status unless we verify it through the appropriate authorities.
And you can't testify even if you even voted in that
I just
election.
indicated that I voted in Fulton County before, in the state of Georgia.
In 2018, 2020, or 2021?
I can't recollect my voting history or my voting pattern in Fulton County or the state of Georgia, nor can I verify or admit to the information that's on Exhibit B, Georgia Secretary of State voter registration system, individual voter report.
No problem. Madam Chairman, I'm going to move to strike Exhibits 1 through 7 attached to the complaint. Based upon Mr. Blazingam's testimony thus far, he basically gives general answers of, I did some vague internet search. I can't tell you what website. I can't tell you how old the documents are. He has not established a sufficient basis or foundation for the admission of any of those exhibits and would ask that those be stricken.
I would object to that move there by little boy Hartman.
Madam Chairman, I would ask that this proceedings be
I
conducted
apologize,
professionally.
Madam Chairman.
I'm going to request, he's respected you by calling you Mr. Blassingame, and I expect you to respect him by calling him Mr. Hartman.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I slipped up. I was raised in Avondale. Sometimes I have a slip of the tongue. No problem.
Sorry to ask that.
The name is Derek D'Amico Blassingame.
So what was your request?
He's not provided a sufficient testimonial foundation for even the submission of any of those exhibits, and I'd ask that they be stricken.
With all due respect to this body, to this board, all of these documents, as indicated and specified, are public records. They're all in the public. A lot of them, or most of them, are in the public domain. Google searches, Bing searches. If you look at every document here, every exhibit here that I've submitted is nothing that was created. It was presented to the board prior to today's meeting. Mr. Hartman's exhibits are something that he copied and pasted and surprised the board with today. He didn't even give you the courtesy of allowing you the opportunity to review them and inspect them for verification.
Mr. Blassingame, the question is from Mr. Hartman that when he asked you specific questions regarding the origin of how you obtained those documents, you were unable or refused to address and answer the questions. That's my understanding.
My answer throughout his questioning was that I could not recollect those specific dates or times, or that he asked me specific questions. And for the record, we'd have to go back and review each one of those questions specifically. But again, these are public records. These are not something that you would have to, be a party to obtain. It's nothing that's protected by privacy laws. There's no privacy laws that protects any of these public records. They're all supported in the public domain, as which I've testified that I've obtained most of these documents and most of these documents from Google searches, online internet searches. These are public records. So to strike it, to allow these to be struck on the basis that my testimony doesn't support where I got them from would be almost like denying that these are not public records.
That
But these
he
are
asked
public
you,
records.
Mr. Blassingame, he asked you specific questions, but you refused or were unable to answer him respectively regarding those exhibits. That's what the concern has been raised.
Okay. I would also, I guess you got to rule on that. You got to vote on that.
Yes. We will be going into executive session to discuss that.
I would like to also ask, on the same basis that he raises the question as it relates to my registration in these exhibits A, B, and C, I believe, that he presented today, that they be struck. Because I've already answered these questions. Ms. Poland has already answered that I'm a registered elector in Ohio. She's already verified that also through the document that I don't have possession of. I guess we'll call that Exhibit D, I think. What is the name of that document, Ms. Poland?
Are you referring to a copy of your registration form?
Yes. For the record, can we label that exhibit? Because we have here my exhibits 1 through 7, and he called his.
I would have no objection to that. That's a record of the Board of Elections,
Right.
and the board
And-
can take notice of its own record. But if he wants my 3 things struck, I'm agreeable to striking those if we strike his.
We will
No,
go into
no.
executive session to
No,
discuss
I-
that, but the most important thing today for me is the fact that one of the most important things is it appears that you renewed your registration or you registered again on May the 13th, 21, and which indicates that you registered to prove for this court, this hearing today, that you were a registered voter in Ohio, in Cincinnati, in Hamilton County.
Yes, I updated
So
my voter.
before- so you
I've experienced
updated.
challenges. I've been unemployed, and due to COVID-19, I've been homeless. So I've had some moments of some challenges over the last year or 2 or 3. And I would admit that there, in some instances, my memory is not 100% as sharp as it would be if I had had these exhibits prior to today's meeting, which the Ohio Civil Rules of Procedure and Evidence would support that would have been a courtesy to the board, first and foremost, but also would have been a courtesy to me. He brought all these documents in as a surprise. He tried to turn this into a voter challenge hearing related to Mr. Blaskin without properly filing the appropriate documents with the board. Today's hearing is about Bob Mccewen. I've already updated my voter registration. Ms. Poland has already verified that. The statute, if we're basing this on 3503.24, supports my voter registration. If we look at the Ohio Secretary of State's website, it says that what are the qualifications to register and to vote in Ohio? You are qualified to register in Ohio if you meet the following requirements. You are a citizen of the United States. You will be at least 18 years of age on or before the day of the next general election. If you will be 18 on or before the general election, you may vote in the primary election to nominate candidates, but cannot vote on issues of party central committees until you are 18. Number 3 says you will be a resident of Ohio for at least 30 days immediately before the election in which you want to vote. You are not incarcerated, in prison, or jail for a felony conviction under the laws of this state, another state, or the United States, and so forth and so on. So based on that, my registration essentially for 30 days ago, May 14th, was essentially to be registered for the November election, and I'm well within the 30 days of that election.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mr. Hartman has stated that, which we will go into executive session to discuss this, what we do as far as your documents and your exhibits 1 through 7, and he seems like he's willing to declare that the ones that he initially brought up it will be also determine if he will keep them viable or not. So we will go into executive session to make that decision, sir.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to
Thank
address
you.
the board. If all else fails in my registration, I would like, you will put your decision in writing, right?
Yes.
Good. All right, good.
Madam Chair, before we go into,
Madam Chairman, am I dismissed? Am I free to go?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
yes.
you, Chair.
what, Madam
Yes.
Chair, I have a couple questions for Mr. Blassingame.
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Blassingame?
Mr.
Sorry.
Blassingame, I'm sorry.
I have a
We
couple.
still have additional questions for clarification.
Mr. Blassingame, you've provided exhibits 1 through 7. Do you have any indication as to where Mr. Mcewen voted? Any records of his voting here in Ohio or in Virginia?
Not apparently in the exhibits that I have.
Okay, yes or no is fine. Yes or
Not
no
that
is
I'm aware
fine.
of.
Have you spoken with Mr. Mcewen about his residency?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you witnessed him at any time here in Hamilton County or in Fairfax, Virginia?
I know that he is
That's not, have you seen him here or there? Personally?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I probably could have seen him, but I don't know.
Okay. Are you familiar with his intent to return to Ohio? You don't dispute that he owns this property here in Hamilton County, correct?
I cannot dispute or I can't just.
Well, you've provided us information.
You're asking me a question about, that's man's rea. I'm not in his mind.
Okay, but you provided us evidence, a document that showed that he owns a property in Hamilton
Yes,
County.
I did provide you
correct?
that document.
Okay, so we'll use that, accept it for what it's worth. have you ever spoken to him about his intent to live permanently in Virginia or return here to Ohio?
I've submitted all the exhibits and testimony that I would like to testify today to the board.
So the answer would be yes or no.
I've submitted all the testimony and document and exhibits that I would like to submit to the board for consideration as it relates to Bob Mcewen's voter registration.
Thank you.
We have, Mr. Blassingame, we have one more question, or a couple more. Mr. Mallory,
I have one
please.
question. Other than the exhibits that you stated that you found by Google search and public records requests, do you have any personal knowledge of Mr. Mcewen's voting status in Ohio or his residence being permanent or temporary in any of the exhibits you have here?
Could you repeat the question?
Other than the exhibits that you stated you found by Google search or public records request, do you have any personal knowledge of Mr. Mcewen's voting record in Ohio or Virginia or his residence status in either state?
I've submitted all the exhibits and testimony that I would like the board to consider as it relates to Bob Mcewen's voter.
Do you have any
registration.
personal knowledge?
I don't know Mr. Mcewen personally. No.
Okay.
And for the record, for clarification, public records request is one of the ways and means that I testified today that I obtained these documents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? I'd like to entertain a motion. We go into executive session by vote, please.
I would move that we go into executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Roll call. I'm sorry.
Sorry. For council, do we have to state the reason for the executive session?
Yes.
She didn't ask you.
Sorry?
Order.
Mr. Blassingame, please. You can have a seat, sir.
The appropriate motion would be to go into executive session to discuss a quasi-judicial matter.
I would like to amend my motion, please, to move that we go into executive session to discuss a quasi-judicial matter.
Amendment accepted. Seconded.
Vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Take a roll call.
We have to do a roll call.
Okay.
Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Mallory?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we come out of executive session.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Malley?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, need a motion to accept all exhibits as presented today by Mr. Hartman and Mr. Blassingame. Need a motion?
I move that we accept all exhibits presented by Mr. Kurt Hartman and Mr. Derek Blasingame.
And for the record, that would include the registration card that,
Exhibit C?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the voter registration of Mr. Derek Blasingame will be also accepted as Exhibit C.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, need a motion to deny the voter challenge, which does not provide any conclusive evidence that Mr.
Well, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move to deny the voter challenge by Mr. Derek Blasingame to Mr. Mcewen's, Bob Mcewen's status as a resident of Ohio based on there being no clear and convincing evidence.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And also procedurally, entertain a motion that refer the following issues to the Secretary of State regarding voting history in the Secretary of States in Georgia and in Ohio.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I
Motion.
move that we refer this matter of the voter registration of Mr. Blasingame to the Ohio Secretary of State's office
And
Georgia.
and Georgia's Secretary of State.
Right.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you. And let me look through my agenda. I think that should be on there, all
Madam
our
Chair.
papers. And what's on
Unless there's
there?
no other business come before this
you.
body, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And have a great rest of the day.